Next Saturday, the 20th of September, which is the third Saturday of this month, is National Sew a Jelly Roll Day. Well, I have our Callie & Co. mystery block release planned for next Saturday, so I am not going to be doing a lot of Jelly Roll chat next week, so I thought we could go ahead and take care of some of that this week. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing some jelly roll patterns. I had a jelly roll video come out in 2022 where I shared a lot of my jelly roll patterns up to that date, but I've had several come out since then. So we are going to be doing a little jelly roll trunk show, and I've got a couple great resources for jelly roll quilts for those of you who might be looking for some fun free jelly roll quilt patterns. For those of you unfamiliar with National Sew a Jelly Roll Day, it is just a fun Saturday, third Saturday of September, where quilters come together to sew up projects made using jelly rolls. This is happening in quilt shops all around the world. It's happening virtually in Facebook groups, and it could even be happening with just you in the privacy of your own home. It's a fun way to know that you are sewing with others, use up those jelly rolls, and end up with a fast, fun project by maybe the end of your Saturday. So we've got a fun lineup of things for today. Stick around. Let's start off by talking about this fun new backdrop behind me that Nicole has put together for us. We are feeling the fall vibes, so we put together some fun fall quilts. This is our new backdrop bundle for right now. The last backdrop bundle has now been retired, and this is the new one. And I'm going to talk about these quilts just a little bit. This first one to my right is Maple Charm. This is a scrappy maple leaf quilt. Finishes at 68 by 80, and it uses 1/8 yard straight cuts of fabric. So those would be 4.5 inch by width of fabric cuts. That allows you to choose just the fabrics that you want for this quilt, so you can get these coordinated yet scrappy maple leaves. Next up, we have Roadside Harvest. This is a fat eighth friendly quilt. You also need some additional yardage for the pumpkins, for the grass strips below the trucks, and then also for the tires. Those are all extra bits of yardage that you need. And then of course you would need your background fabric, your border, binding, backing, all of those goodies. This one finishes at 72 by 80. This original fabric line is Cozy Up, but of course you could do this in so many beautiful fabric lines. There are always so many pretty fall fabric lines. I don't know which season would be my favorite season for purchasing those seasonal fabrics, but I always love a good fall fabric. This last quilt to my left is Leaves. It's another one that uses Cozy Up, and it's also another fat eighth friendly quilt. So you would just need the fat eighth bundle, your background, borders, binding, and backing to complete that quilt. That one finishes at 66 by 76. So all of those are available in a bundle of patterns in both PDF and paper. And when I do these backdrop bundles, there's a little bit of a discount for purchasing the full bundle, but they're also available individually if just one of the quilts or two of the quilts catches your fancy. That's the new backdrop. Next, we're going to dive into some viewer quilts. I chose a bunch of jelly roll projects. I thought that was fitting for this quilt. So everything in today's lineup of viewer quilts is going to be jelly roll themed. Up first from Sharon S. She says, "Dear Cori and Nicole, thank you for all your wonderful videos. I love all Coriander Quilts fabrics and patterns and have most of the fabric lines and patterns. My goal this year is to use my stash as often as possible when making my projects. I had a jelly roll and some yardage from Cozy Up and decided to use it to make a fall table runner. I used my favorite fall blocks of pumpkins, stars, and maple leaves and designed this table runner. It is on my table now and is my first fall decoration. Thank you for making my home more beautiful." So those scrappy jelly roll pumpkins are super cute and such a great use of jelly roll strips, especially if you have just little bits cut off from making a larger project. You could easily use those to make something similar. Next from Carolyn B. I used one of Cori's jelly roll patterns and the Hello Spring Jelly Roll by Sandy Gervais. They were perfect for the spring look I sought. So there we have a beautiful springtime project using a jelly roll. From Rosalie J. Hi Cori, I so look forward to your Saturday morning videos. This is the first quilt I made with your fabrics. It is one of my very favorites. It was a quilt kit from Moda, so of course it came in the beautiful keepsake box. I decided to make a jelly roll rug to match. This combo makes me happy every time I walk by my spare room. So in Rosalie's pattern, we can see that beautiful medley medallion quilt on her bed, and then tucked down right at the foot of the bed, we see that jelly roll rug. Those rugs are such a fun jelly roll project. Sometimes we just automatically start thinking about all of the quilt projects that we can make using jelly rolls, but every time I see one of those rugs, they are always so pretty. So another fun jelly roll project. And then lastly, from Peggy L. She says, hi Cori, this is the first block of the month I've ever participated in and really enjoyed it. I rearranged the blocks a little and swapped the first block for another star block and added a border to make it a little bigger. I made 2 of the first block in the series and made coordinating pillow covers. I used a jelly roll called Chocolates for the jelly roll fabric and found coordinating fabric at a local quilt shop. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for all your tutorials and tips. So that quilt was from our Quilt Along Sunny Patches that I hosted a couple years ago. It started with a jelly roll, and then we made those fun blocks to go with and ended up with a really neat quilt at the end. That's a free pattern still available over on my blog, and I have a series of tutorials here on the channel, so I'll make sure and link to those. Medley Medallion, that pattern I have in my Etsy shop. The patchwork jelly roll pattern, what's the name of that? I have it over here. Let me look here at that name for certain. Jelly roll patchwork. That was that springtime jelly roll quilt that Carolyn sent a photo in. That pattern is also over in my Etsy shop. And then of course Sharon sent in just her own design. So that is the lineup of viewer quilts for today. I think we're just going to dive into those quilts. The last thing I'm going to share today, though, make sure you stick around for this. Last week, I had chosen our next works in progress number, and my number for September is to get rid of a project I'm not looking forward to finishing. Well, I looked through my projects, and I didn't come across one that I wasn't 100% sold on, that I didn't want to finish. So instead, I pulled out one of my oldest, I don't know which one is my oldest, but this is a really old work in progress that I've had for years. So I think this would be fun to actually finish. So I thought I would share this with all of you so you could see one of my older projects. It's always fun to look back at these, and this one will be somewhat quick to finish, I think, and I'll be happy to have it checked off. So I'm going to share that after we look at some of these jelly roll quilts. Okay. I'm also going to link to that jelly roll trunk show that I referenced at the beginning of the video. That came out in 2022, and there are a lot of fun jelly roll quilts in that video, so I'll link to that one. And then these are the ones that I have released since that video came out. And let me just, we'll pull one at a time here so I have a little more space. Remember last week, I wished I had more space on my cutting table for sharing things. When I had it so full of everything last week, I couldn't show everything as well as I had wanted to. So we'll leave it empty and just pull one in at a time. This first quilt is Jelly Roll Jackpot. It finishes at 70 by 70. And I used Callie & Co. for this project, which Callie & Co. you should still be able to get pretty easily in quilt shops. It's not an old fabric line. I think most of the fabric lines that I have here, you should still be able to get. Some of them will be a little bit harder to find, especially pre-cuts can go quickly, but I would think you'd still be able to find all of them in quilt shops. But this is Jelly Roll Jackpot using Callie & Co. Just a really fun scrappy pattern. A lot of jelly roll patterns can easily be made using scraps from your fabric bin. So even if you don't have a jelly roll, a lot of them are so versatile just to pull fabrics from your scrap bin. So here is Jelly Roll Jackpot. This was quilted by David Hurd. I imagine most of these as we go down through are going to have been quilted by him, because he's quilted a lot for me over the last number of years. This is one of the designs that I often use, this quilting design for jelly roll quilts. It's called Circles Nested. It's by Julie Hurt, and I love it because You can size these little circles however you want, and they oftentimes fit really nicely within these 2-inch finished pieces that we get when we're using jelly rolls. And it gives great texture. It's not super distracting from the design, and I just think it turns out so pretty. So this is Jelly Roll Jackpot in Callie & Co fabrics. All right, just gonna move on to our next quilt. The next one is made using Peachy Keen. It's another scrappy jelly roll quilt. This one is Jelly Roll Patchwork. This is the same one that we saw earlier in that viewer quilt share, the springtime quilt where she used the Sandy Gervais fabric. This is the pattern that she used, Jelly Roll Patchwork. It is a smaller quilt finishing at 56 by 62. This is a fun one in that you don't need any additional fabric for your quilt center. You would just need your border fabric, binding, backing, and then of course batting fabric. So if you have a jelly roll and a little bit of border fabric, you can make your quilt top for this quilt. Here it is, Jelly Roll Patchwork. These original fabrics are Peachy Keen. You're going to see the same quilting design on this quilt as what I just shared with Jelly Roll Jackpot. It really is a favorite of mine for these quilts. I love it on jelly rolls. In fact, I just sent another jelly roll pattern to David yesterday, and I debated about using this pattern again. I didn't, but I thought about it. It just looks so pretty. So here it is. Again, a super scrappy quilt. Another great one to use scraps from your scrap baskets. If that is something you're wanting to bust through some of those scraps, this is another good one for that. But here it is, just scrappy and delightful. And it would be really pretty. You wouldn't even need to use all the same fabric line, just scrapalicious. And there it is. So Jelly Roll Patchwork, finishing at 56 by 62. These original fabrics, again, were Peachy Keen. This next one would be the most recent jelly roll quilt that I've shared here on the channel. This is Jelly Twinkle. This one finishes at 64 by 76, so a little bit bigger than the previous quilt. And this one is made using In the Garden fabrics. Right now, these fabrics are showing that they'll be in quilt shops in November. So we're going to have them before too long in our hands to sew with, and I'll get to see all of your fun projects showing up. But this is In the Garden, Jelly Roll Twinkle. It's got all of those scrappy stars. And there it is. The quilting on this one, I think the name of this is called Swirly Foliage, if I'm remembering right. I'll link to these quilting designs down in the description box of the video so that if you like any of them, you've got that information available. Pretty sure this one is called Swirly Foliage, and it is a So Shabby quilting design. Just these fun little swirls and then little flowers throughout, which is perfect for In the Garden fabrics. So Jelly Twinkle. Just the jelly roll background fabric, a little bit of background fabric also for the inner border, and then an outer border binding fabric. I used a stripe, and then there's the backing. You can really see that quilting design on the back of this quilt. It's a good one. Super scrappy, another good one for using up your scraps. But if you're like me, you probably have some jelly rolls on hand just about any time that you can grab and sew with. So there is Jelly Twinkle. And this would be the newest jelly roll pattern that you have seen. I'll have another one to share before too long when those new quilts arrive back to me from David. Next up, we have Jelly Dash. I think this is probably the largest of these quilts I'm sharing today. This one finishes at 78 by 93, so it is a large one. The fabrics are from my A Bloom line of fabric, And it's named Jelly Dash because it is a take on a churn dash block, but made using a jelly roll. So I'll show as much of this as I can here. I'll be sure to link to the trunk shows where I shared these quilts originally so that you can see all of the new quilts in the new fabric lines if you were interested to watch those previous videos. But this is this one. I do not have any idea the name of this quilting offhand, so I can't even say what it is verbally, but I will be sure to link to it. It's a really pretty one. Circles and crosshatch, which are two of my favorite things. I love kind of an orange peel design, and then that crosshatch is also just really pretty. So we have the churn dash blocks, super scrappy, pretty sashing, separating all of the blocks. For this one, you'll need your jelly roll. You need 2 1/4 yards of fabric for your blocks. When it says that, it's referring to this portion of your blocks. And then your sashing. You see that those are the same fabrics. And then you need background fabric, which I use that really pretty sketch fabric from a bloom that has just that light taupey gray sketched florals. And then you need binding and backing. So that is Jelly Dash. The backing on this one is that larger scale floral on that pretty stone gray color, which I think is such a pretty complement to the quilt front. So that is that one. Got a ruler getting away from me over here. I had it propped against my cutting table, and when I was moving this quilt around, it was wanting to tumble over a little bit. So we'll just tuck that over here to the side. All right, so that's Jelly Dash. And then the last quilt that I'm sharing today, I would have shared in that 2022 jelly roll video, but at that time it was only available in a book. And shortly after that video, I released it as an individual pattern. So this is Apricot Jelly. And I made this one using coriander colors. And I've made this, have I just made it twice? I've either made this 2 or 3 times. It's a really fun one. I know that the original quilt I made using a scrappy jelly roll, where I specifically cut 2 1/2 inch strips so I could coordinate all of the fabrics I wanted to use. Don't ever forget that that's an option. You can make a scrappy cohesive jelly roll quilt, not using your scraps, but rather cutting from yardage, which is a really fun option to have because you can really tailor that jelly roll to exactly what you want it to be. But this one is made using coriander colors, and it is bright and happy, that is for sure. This one has a pebble quilting design on it, which I thought was fun. And then these cornerstones here with the stars just create this fun chain pattern all the way down through your quilt, which is really pretty. I used black and white stripe for the binding. The backing is the gray X print, which gives just a little bit of print to that back. It's the same print that I used for the sashing right here. This quilt finishes at 68 by 84. In addition to the jelly roll, you need background fabric, your gray sashing fabric, and then of course binding, backing, and batting. The 3 B's always round out my quilt patterns. Binding, backing, and batting. So that is Apricot Jelly. And the last of the quilt patterns that I would have released since my previous jelly roll video back in 2022. The other thing that I wanted to mention is there are 2 great resources for jelly roll quilts that I am also going to link down in that description box. The first one is the Moda Fabrics lineup of free quilt patterns, free jelly roll quilt patterns specifically. So I'm going to link there. And then Fat Quarter Shop is another great spot for free jelly roll patterns. They have a page where they have not only their own free patterns that they have designed, but then they also have included free patterns from fabric companies. So they'll have free jelly roll patterns from Moda, free jelly roll patterns from Riley Blake, etc. And pages of free jelly roll quilt patterns. So maybe you're not looking for something for next Saturday, but maybe you have a jelly roll project, a jelly roll pre-cut, a jelly roll pre-cut in hand, and you want to be able to make a fun project. Those are both great resources to find free quilt patterns. One that especially caught my eye on the Fat Quarter Shop page was a jelly roll snowflake, I think was what it was, pattern. That would be perfect to work on right now to have done in time for the holidays. One of the great things about working with pre-cuts is a lot of your cutting is done ahead of time, so it does save you on the cutting, and they typically tend to go together pretty quickly. A couple tips that I would have for working with jelly rolls. I know some people either love them or hate them. There might not be a lot of middle ground. I really enjoy working with pre-cuts, so I think jelly rolls are great. Before you open up your jelly roll, run a lint roller over those pinked edges. That's going to get rid of a lot of those little fabric froncels that want to cling to everything nearby. So run a lint roller over your jelly roll prior to opening up, and that will save you a little bit of mess. Measure your jelly roll before you start sewing. This is going to tell you if you need to sew from mountaintop to mountaintop or valley to valley, just so that you have an idea of what your jelly roll is measuring. Occasionally, if your jelly roll is running a little bit roomy, you might even be able to trim down some of those pinked edges if you want to. I know if I'm working with pre-cuts and I can trim down some of those pinked edges, I like to, just because they aren't always my favorite to sew with. They're not necessarily tricky, but a flat edge for me is going to be just a little bit nicer to sew with. So if I can trim things down, I will. So measure those jelly roll strips to see if you need to trim anything down, or if you want to trim anything down. And then just to have an idea of if you're sewing from those outer mountaintops or if you're sewing from your valleys, because that does make a difference. Keep in mind, we don't typically pre-wash or pre-starch our pre-cuts, but depending on your pattern, you might be able to, but just something to be aware of when you're working with a jelly roll. And then just trying to think if there's anything else that I specifically do or don't do with jelly rolls. If you have other suggestions or tips for working with jelly roll strips, feel free to leave those down in the comments below. I know there are lots of different tips and tricks and things we like to do when we're sewing. So if you have something great that you want to share with all of us, be sure to do that. Now, let's talk about that work in progress. I was looking over on my shelves trying to decide what project it was going to be that I wanted to give away. And there just really wasn't one. I thought there might be, but there wasn't. I think I had this listed twice in my works in progress lineup of tasks I wanted to complete this year, because usually I have more than one project at any given time that I don't mind letting go and letting somebody else finish and enjoy quicker than I'm ever going to get to it. But I did one already. Gave one project away already, and then I did an impromptu one that wasn't part of my works in progress lineup, so I gave that away too. I know there was at least those two. I don't know if I did it more than that this year or not. And so when it came time to choose another one, I just didn't really have one that I wanted to let go of just yet. Some of them I might decide to, but I wasn't 100% on it yet. But as I was looking through, I found this. This was a project, I'm going to guess it's from 2010, somewhere between 2008 and 2012. So we'll give it a 4-year range of how long it's been a work in progress for me. But it was part of a quilt along that was happening probably on Flickr. Do any of you guys remember the Flickr days where there was the quilt alongs and sew alongs hosted there? It was a really neat time to be quilting. If you were around then, that was fun. But this was, I think, hosted on Flickr. I don't remember by who, but it was just this chevron project. And I've got, this is so funny to look at, but you can see like my pressing needs a little bit of going over again. Some of that is just from having been stored away, but some of that is we need to do a little something here. And then the other thing, as I worked my way down through my pile, I kind of had to laugh a little bit. So this strip here will come here. And it's just going to make this really pretty springy chevron pattern. I think I probably purchased these just at one of my local quilt shops, the fabrics. It's a mix of solids and prints and just in sort of these springy colors. But I think those are the only two full strips I have sewn here. And then I've got pretty much everything pinned. But what I was going to say is these pins I was using back then, I don't know what kind of pins these are, but I do know that they do not really like fabric that much. Do you guys have those pins that maybe you just had on hand, you didn't necessarily buy anything fancy, or maybe didn't realize that there's a big difference in quality of pins, and you might still have some of these tucked away, but whatever these pins are, they don't really like fabric that much. They're not that nice to work with. I don't know how well you can see those. They're just the old metal pins. I don't know. I have much better pins now, and it makes me laugh that I've got everything pinned together using these pins. But so I don't know. I don't know where my next, maybe that's the top. That even could be the top. I'll have to lay everything out. But once I get these rows sewn together, give everything kind of a little press, and I didn't even trim off my dog ears. But give everything a press, get everything trimmed up how it needs to be, and then it should go together pretty quickly. We'll see how accurate I was with half square triangles back in the, I don't know, whenever this was. I guess it could even be sooner than 2000. Like it could be anywhere from 2005 to 2012. I just don't even know. I have no idea exactly when these were put together. It's been a while. But there's where that one would go. This one will fit on up here. It's easy to tell because you just match your fabrics up and it's going to create the pattern. There's my next, there's the tan, or that light, that off-white color. So that's going to come with this section here. Anyhow, you can see, you get the idea. Doesn't that look like a fun one to finish? It's probably, I'm in the wrong season. This is definitely not a fall feeling project, but it's a happy and fun project, and I'll be excited to have it put together. I kind of, these ones from so long ago, forget a little bit about. I have just a few of them that I think would be really fun. And this one, oh, that's another chunk of two. Look how pretty those are together. This one will be a really fun one to have finished up. So, instead of giving one away, this one's getting added on to my to be finished. So I will see if I can get this project done as well as finish up that little rocking chair. That rocking chair shouldn't take me too much more time to finish. And this one I don't think will take me too much time to finish. Majority of this is just going to be getting everything kind of pressed, maybe repinned together. It's also kind of funny to me that I pinned everything like this. I would never pin all of this together. If I were sewing this together now, I would just have my little half square triangles sitting beside me and I would sew them together. Not all of this pinning nonsense. I'm not a pinner. It's nice though having everything in order. It does keep it nice and tidy, but it's funny. It's funny when we look back and we see how we did things and how we no longer do the things. All right, so let me know if you've made progress since last Saturday. It's only been a week, but maybe you've already made progress on your work in progress for September. If you are participating in National Sew a Jelly Roll Day next Saturday, I'd love to hear about that. I'd love to know what jelly roll pattern you're going to be using. If you're sewing by yourself, with friends, virtually, in a quilt shop, whatever that might be, I'd love to hear about that. And if you are a quilt shop that is hosting something virtually or in person, let us know about that too, so that maybe some of us have time to make plans to visit. So that is what I have to share for today. I thank you so much for stopping by. I will catch you again next week.